My name is Jeff Johnson. I was born in Los Angeles, California in 1967. I moved to Michigan in 1983 and I finished my high school at Grosse-Ile High School. I graduated in 85 and I went to school at Wayne State University for a couple semesters, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just kind of drifted through there. So I decided to enlist in the Army and take advantage of their GI Bill. And anyways, I enlisted in 1987, and I went to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And then I went to AIT at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, where I was trained to be it was called the 91 Alpha back then, a combat medic. And
well, my name is Chuck Kramsvogel, and I'm originally from Manistee, Michigan. One of the nicer spots on Lake Michigan, of course. And that was where I was born and raised and went to high school. But at that particular time, Uncle Sam decided that he needed some additional help. And they picked on Manistee, so 35 of us went out of Manistee at one time. And essentially it was mostly the senior class.
I'm John Hill. I was born in Grand Rapids, the west side. My family's lived here forever, and went into service in 1964 through 68. I went in again in 69 through 71, and I was in the National Guard for 1 year after that. I remember being in Detroit at the time, fresh green kid, and I'm up at the top bunk, and here comes the sergeant and wake everybody up, and I didn't want to get up. Well, I found where the floor was, dumped the bunk right over, and I got up. And I guess that was the first realization, well, I'm in the Army now.
The three of us, there were three of us that left town to go into the service. So after we got into Fort Sheridan, Illinois, we had to take a trip down to Fort Hood, Texas. At that time it was called Camp Hood, Texas. And there we learned that it would be very nice if we paid attention to a sergeant. There were sergeants and there were captains and there were lieutenants and all.
I had always considered joining the military. I never thought I would make a career out of it, but my family has a military history. My father was in the Navy. Both grandfathers were in the Army. Uncles that were in the Army, and the Marines, and the Navy. And so it wasn't necessarily just a tradition thing, although that did play a part of it. But I also wanted to serve my country. I wanted to be able to go to college.
It was at the time, you know, just prior Vietnam, and we were being pushed quite a bit during that period of time to run us through as quick as possible. AIT training was Fort Campbell, and it was down in Louisiana for swamp training, or jungle training, you might say.
I left on board a ship, and at that time there was a black contingent on board ship, and they were asking people, and white and black, if they would like to come to a lodge meeting on board ship. And
we had, in my unit, I had 3 brother Masons, and I actually got to, one of them was in my platoon that I served with, Eric Hennings. Great soldier, good Mason.
There was a bond there that it was a little difficult to explain. But if they were with me, I didn't have to worry about anything. And they should not have to worry if I were there and needed to help them.
We did. I had Eric Hennings was he's a E7 Sergeant First Class, and Mike Zimnicki were both brother Masons, and we got together right off the. It was. I didn't know Mike very well because he was fairly new to our unit, but once we found out he was a Mason, Eric and I just kind of tackled him and welcomed him to the unit, and it was just all the barriers you usually have to cross before you're accepted into something. You usually have to kind of stand up and let others see you and make a decision on you. Well, being a brother Mason, Eric and I pulled him right in, and I think that one of the things that I noticed that I did not know before was how prevalent Masonry is in the military. I was constantly running into brothers in uniform while I was in Iraq, while I was in Texas. I have a Masonic ring, and sometimes I forget I have it on, but I can be talking to somebody or writing something down or in the chow hall getting some food, and someone will notice that ring and come up to me and say, how are you, brother? You traveling east? And it's been one of those things where you can stop and realize you have something in common with this complete stranger, and that was an experience.
So
when I was at
one time, though, and it was on Heartbreak Ridge, where I got hit, so I can't move around very much, and just laying there on the stretcher, and I was picked up by we called them the Blue Boys. That was the National Guard of Korea, South Korea, and they were taking the fellows down the hill and on into getting into a Jeep, and then later on it was a helicopter, and then later on a plane, down to the ship in Busan. And at that moment in time, though, I was just laying on my stomach because I couldn't lay any other way. I was hitting the rear and rear of my legs, not the other part, but the rear of my legs, and so I couldn't move around because the wounds were on that end and side. And so the one fellow was trying to get my ring off, and I wore my Masonic ring over there. I just never took it off, I guess, when I left, and it was always there, along with my wristwatch. Well, somebody stripped my wristwatch off. I could feel that going off my wrist, and I couldn't move my arms too well in the position I was in. And then all of a sudden there was somebody starting to play with that ring, and I thought, no way, Jose, I just don't appreciate this. And I yelled over to this one fella, and he came over, and he didn't understand a darn thing I was trying to say. I said, get that guy off my arm. Anyway, to make a long story short, in that period, there was another fellow that came along and just put his hand right around my hand, and it wasn't the grip of a Mason, but it was a hand covering my ring and my whole hand, and said, okay, GI, okay, Sergeant. And he walked down the hill with me part way, holding my hand. So I often just wonder about this whole thing, and he did recognize him, but he was evidently associated some way, somehow, with the Masons, and I really don't know much more than that, except that he said something he knew about Masons. So I figure that I lucked out there very, very much so. Just a strange way.
Masonry to me is like a brotherhood, a continuing fellowship with the men that we know. And I have not seen that since I was in the military. And it's just like energy level for me to be there in that lodge on Thursday nights and enjoy the time. And I haven't seen that for a lot of years. Same way I feel sometimes, that you're there helping your fellow man or your fellow veteran. And that's what's important, really important to me, is the veterans. It's a special day for all of us, but more especially the veterans, because we know that flag was earned by blood, and only blood. And a lot of good men died because of it. But here we are.
There's always this point of something happening way beyond any dream that you might have, and you don't dream about it, but it makes you pretty humble. I was just doing my duty as a horde of people coming in at night. There were some patrols coming in, which were taken care of evidently by our people out there. But where the old man, Captain Totten, we had other names for him at times, but Totten told us to get behind one of the graves.
There is one day, I think that that sticks out for me, and I'm still gaining perspective on it. I still look back on it frequently, but it was April 10th, 2004, and so I slept in a little bit. I had gone into our command center, our radio center, and I went there to steal some coffee, and I was talking to the guy on duty, the radio guy, Dustin Crumpets, and we had just sent a 4-vehicle patrol out to go from. I just happened to be in the room when they called in the first checkpoint. We had 4 checkpoints on main supply route Tampa between Abu Ghraib prison and Baghdad. They happened to be freeway overpasses. Every time they went by the overpass, they called in, checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2. And I remember the convoy commander, he called and said, we're now passing checkpoint 1. His name was Stan Carmel, great guy. And called up very calmly, passing checkpoint 1. And I was just pouring my coffee, and 2 seconds later, the radio just came on fire, and it was Stan, but his voice was a little bit higher this time. He was saying, "Oh, we're taking fire from the left and the right," and you could hear them taking fire. And but he was just giving a report as he was going down the road. We're taking small arms fire, and then all of a sudden I could hear him say, "Oh, we're taking rocket fire, and we're taking all kinds of stuff." And the commander took steps right away. He said, "We got to go get these guys. When they make it to Baghdad, we have got to go get them and bring them back." So he had the first sergeant round up all of the up-armored vehicles that he could find, and we were going to go get Stan. And we stood in that room and we listened to him go from checkpoint 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and finally hit the airport, and they were getting shot at almost the entire way. Miraculously, we had, in the Humvee I was in, we had 9 guys. We looked like gunships. We had guns pointing out at both sides, up on top, everything. Well, we left Abu Ghraib, and we hooked a left on main supply route Tampa, and headed towards Baghdad. And the freeway was on fire, burning vehicles on both sides of the road, burning tankers, burning trucks, burning cars, burning Humvees. We traveled crept along. We finally hit checkpoint 4. We called Stan up on the radio and said, "Stan, we're coming to get you." And he comes tearing down the road. His 4-vehicle convoy comes tearing down the road and goes, "Roger, I got you in sight," and zoom, sped right past us. And we're like, "Stan, slow down. We got to turn around." Zoom. So he's heading down the freeway. So we're turning around, and sure enough, Stan's little 4-man convoy got lit up again because the bad guys thought it was just these 4 vehicles. And we were right behind them. We were about a quarter of a mile behind them. I don't think the bad guys knew we were coming again. But anyways, we got lined up. We were on the other side of the road, and we were heading that way. And Eric Hennings was in the very first vehicle of our convoy. And he got on the radio and very calmly said, "We're taking fire. We just passed checkpoint 4. We're receiving fire from the north side of the road." So we had about a 7-8 second heads up. This is where the bad guys were, and this is where it was coming from. So we drove. We went underneath that freeway overpass, and all of a sudden, all we saw were orange and yellow flashes coming from everywhere. We were getting shot at from the ditch, from houses, from places I don't even remember. I mean, it was just coming everywhere, and impression. And it was like, yeah, we were getting shot at. You could hear the bullets go by. It sounded like someone was taking a wire hanger and whipping it through the air. It was cutting the air like that, and you could hear them go past your head, and you could see them hitting the road, and you could feel them hitting the vehicle. And we started returning fire. If it was flashing, it was getting shot at. Then there were some loud explosions. They were firing mortars at us, but it was hitting on the side. There were rockets that went by vehicles. I remember the moment that I was the most scared, probably my entire time I was there, was I had just emptied a magazine, and I was changing, and so I dropped my empty magazine onto the floor of the truck, and I was loading up my magazine, and I happened to look into the cab of the vehicle, and Sergeant Lou DeLine was driving, and he had one hand on the steering wheel, and he had his rifle perched on his arm, and he was shooting, but he was shooting behind me. And I looked up, and I could see the vehicle in front of us, and all the guys were crouched down as low as they could get, and they had their weapons above their heads, and they were shooting down like this. And I'm wondering, what are they shooting at? All the bad guys are on the other side. And I turned around and I looked, and there was a ditch along the side of the freeway, and it had really tall grass and willows and things like that in there. And it was nothing but, it looked like fireworks going off in there. There was flashes coming out of there. My back had been exposed to these things. I hadn't seen it at all. And but I remember I just pointed my weapon down and started shooting into that ditch. And it was scary being caught off guard like that when I shouldn't have been. But seeing my driver shooting while he was driving, that really made the hair in the back of my neck stand up. And seeing those guys in front, in the vehicle in front of us, you know, realizing that danger right there. And then, anyways, we engaged the enemy. We were traveling very slow while we were doing it. That's the one thing too that was frightening, realizing how slow we were going. But one of the soldiers across from me, Sergeant Bill Fox, had been shooting, and I saw him kind of lurch forward, and he got right back up and kept shooting. But I noticed there was a hole in the armor right by his head, and but you know, he kept shooting, and I didn't see any blood right off the bat, and we were still engaging the enemies. When we finally, but that round had pierced that armor. It had splintered, and
put yourself in their place, and you get closer, quicker than any other thing, I think. If I met a policeman out here, you know, and just talked to him, I could not relate a lot to a policeman in a sense. But on traffic control and all that sort of thing, I could talk about streetlights, but I couldn't talk about things. But if you talk with a veteran, or he talks to you, you listen. And share. Because I think that's what, we have this one common bond. It's just, it's a brotherhood unto itself. Can't.
This previous Memorial Day, I was downtown. I was wearing this hat. A little girl about that high comes up to me, says, "Thank you. Thank you for serving." I guess that's all you have to say. When someone that young, I mean, she couldn't have been over 6 or 7 years old. You know, and that's where it's at. If you can't read it from there, you know, for other people, I'm sorry you can't. But
that's good. I understand the hardship that they've experienced. I would understand as well the sacrifice that they've made. Being away from your family is a huge sacrifice. Serving your nation is a huge sacrifice. And the fact that we share that together, you're right, there is an experience, a shared experience there that if you haven't done it, you probably wouldn't understand as well. And I would say that military experience and Masonry seems so often to go hand in hand that I think being able to say that I served and pointing at some of our brothers in the lodge and knowing that they served as well, and knowing that future brothers that we have will have served, are serving, right now. That is a link that it doesn't matter how long you've been out, that will always be there. It's very strong. I'm proud of their service because I'm proud of my service. I know what they did. I know what others will do. So, when they put my 50-year pin, on me, and I see some young guy who's, 20s or 30s or 40s, and he served in the military, he'll understand me and I'll understand him. And I think that shared experience is it's just a strength that we have. That's cool.
Those who did come back and had a Masonic funeral, and some did, that was something extra special that I thought, I hope I never have to have at the time. But I don't know, it seemed to me that if you had that extra bond of being in service, they sacrificed their life for their country, for you and I. And if it was something that was that important, I guess I had to be the same, and did. So.
Okay, my name's John Hill, west side of Grand Rapids, born and raised here. I was in the military, total of 7 years. I was in Vietnam for 2 years, 2 consecutive tours. And I was attached to the fifth group.
My name is Chuck Kramsvogel, and I served in the Armed Forces during World War II. I was assigned to the 566 Topographical Engineering Company, joined the reserve and ended up in Korea, serving with Company I, 38th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Division, which is second to none. I have to put that plug in or I would get shot by one of my buddies.
My name is Jeff Johnson. I belong to Doric Lodge number 342 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm a staff sergeant. I served in Iraq from February 04 to February 05. I served with Company F, Long Range Surveillance, 425th Infantry of the Michigan Army National Guard. I would say that I'm proud of my service, I'm proud of being a Mason, and I'm happy to be home.